Cancel my mother-in-law's reservation. I need 5 rooms for my family. Kendra's voice cut through the lobby like a knife. Ethan, my receptionist, faltered with the phone in his hand, all the color draining from his face. "Let me get the owner," he said, and at that moment I crossed the hotel's main entrance with my suitcase. Our eyes met. The panic in his told me everything. I walked toward the counter, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. "Hello, Kendra," I said loudly, just enough for her to hear me through the speakerphone. "What's the problem?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear her sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Then, a click. She had hung up. Ethan was looking at me as if he'd just witnessed a car crash. And maybe he had. Because what was about to unfold was going to shatter what little was left of my family. I took the phone from Ethan's trembling hands and dialed Kendra's number. 1, 2, 3 rings. She answered, but didn't speak. I just heard her agitated breathing. "See you in 20 minutes, I told her with a calm I didn't feel. "Here at my hotel." I hung up before she could reply. My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone in the lobby could hear it. I looked at Ethan and gave him a simple instruction. "Prepare the conference room. And coffee. Lots of coffee." He nodded and disappeared toward the back of the building. I was left alone in the lobby, surrounded by the place I had built with my own hands, feeling like everything I had tried to protect was about to explode. 20 minutes. That was all the time I had to mentally prepare for the confrontation I had avoided for 5 years. I went up to my office on the 2nd floor, left the suitcase by the door, and sat at the wooden desk that had belonged to my late husband. From the window I could see the parking lot. I knew Kendra would arrive. She had no choice. She had been exposed, caught in her own trap, and something told me she wouldn't come alone. My name is Beatrice. I am 65 years old, and every wrinkle on my face tells a story of survival. This hotel, these ivory-colored walls, these gray marble floors, this garden that overlooks the ocean, I built all of this. Alone. After my husband died 8 years ago, after Ryan married Kendra 5 years ago, after my life became an endless series of family scenes where I was treated like a piece of old furniture that nobody knows where to put. Invisible. Irrelevant. A burden. Kendra never hid her contempt for me. From the first day I met her, when Ryan brought her home with that nervous smile that warned me my son was no longer completely mine, she measured my every word, every gesture, evaluating if I was sophisticated enough for her social circle, my modest house in the suburbs, my simple clothes, my straightforward way of speaking. None of it fit into the perfect image she had designed for her life, and I definitely didn't fit into the image she wanted to project as Ryan's wife. "Your mother is quaint," she once told Ryan, thinking I couldn't hear her. We were in my kitchen. I was preparing dinner while they chatted in the living room. "But when we have kids, I think it would be better if they spent more time with my family. You know, so they have better influences." Ryan said nothing. That silence hurt more than any direct insult. My son, the boy I had raised alone after his father's death, the young man I taught that dignity has no price, stayed silent while his wife erased me from his future. After that night, something broke in me. It wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming or slamming doors. It was quieter and more devastating. It was the decision to stop begging for love, to stop showing up in their lives expecting crumbs of attention. I took the savings I had, sold the house where Ryan grew up, took out loans I knew would take me years to pay off, and bought this abandoned plot of land overlooking the ocean. Everyone thought I had lost my mind. A woman your age starting a hotel business? "Are you crazy, Beatrice?" they told me. Maybe I was crazy, but it was my madness, my project, my escape. It took me 3 years to turn those ruins into a 12-room boutique hotel. I hired architects, designers, worked side by side with construction workers and painters. I learned about permits, taxes, digital marketing, social media. I got up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, worked until the darkness forced me to stop, and started all over again the next day. The physical pain was welcome. It distracted me from the other pain, the one with no bandages or painkillers. The pain of knowing my son had chosen to please his wife over maintaining a relationship with me. Ryan came to the grand opening, alone. Kendra had a terrible migraine. He toured the facilities in silence, touching the walls as if he couldn't believe I had accomplished this. "Mom, this is incredible," he finally told me. And for a moment, I saw my real son, not the watered-down version Kendra had molded. "Why didn't you tell me you were doing something this big?" I held his gaze. "Because you stopped asking about my life a long time ago." He left that same night. He didn't visit me again for 3 years. Until now, until this reservation I had made for both of them. My last desperate play. I had written him a simple email. "The hotel is turning 3. I'd like us to celebrate together. I've reserved the main suite for you, just one weekend. Ryan, please." His reply came 2 days later. "I'll be there, Mom." 3 words that made me cry onto my computer keyboard. 3 words that gave me back my hope. 3 words that Kendra had just tried to destroy with a single phone call. I looked at my watch. 12 minutes had passed. A silver car entered the parking lot, skidding slightly on the gravel. Kendra got out of the vehicle with sharp movements, her dark hair perfectly styled, even in the midst of the crisis. She was wearing an emerald green dress that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. She slammed the car door so hard I heard the thud from my office. But she wasn't alone. From the passenger seat, Ryan got out. My heart stopped. My son was here, pale, shoulders slumped, walking 3 steps behind his wife like a scolded child. Kendra stopped in front of the main entrance, smoothed her dress, lifted her chin, and walked in. Ryan followed. Neither of them knew I was watching them from above. Neither of them knew this confrontation wouldn't end the way they expected. I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and dialed the extension for reception. "Ethan, send them up." I walked down the stairs with measured steps, each one calculated not to show the earthquake I felt inside. Kendra was standing in the center of the lobby, looking around as if she were evaluating the place for a scathing review. Ryan lingered near the door, hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the marble floor. When my shoes echoed on the last step, they both turned. Kendra's expression went from shock to indignation in less than a second. "You," she said, as if that single word were a complete accusation. I replied, stopping 10 feet away. "The owner of the hotel you just called to cancel my reservation." Kendra opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in 5 years, I saw her speechless. It was almost satisfying. Almost. Because when my eyes met Ryan's, all that satisfaction evaporated. My son was looking at me with a mixture of confusion and something worse. Shame, not for his wife. For me. As if I were the one who had done something wrong by existing, by succeeding, by not conveniently disappearing from their lives. "Mom," he said, finally, and that word sounded more like an apology than a greeting. "We didn't know this was you. You didn't tell us you were the owner." I laughed. It was a short, bitter laugh that surprised even me. "I didn't tell you? Ryan, I sent you the invitation from the hotel's official email. The name is on the website, on social media, on every single invoice. Beatrice Alvarado, owner and founder. At what point during these 3 years did it occur to you to wonder what I was doing, where I lived, what my job was, how I paid my bills?" The silence that followed was so thick I could feel it pressing against my skin. Kendra recovered her composure first. Of course she did. She had always been good at reassembling herself quickly, at turning any situation to her advantage. "Beatrice," she said, and the way she pronounced my name, with that studied condescension, made me clench my fists. "This is clearly a misunderstanding. I didn't know this was your hotel. If I had known, I obviously never would have. Never would have tried to cancel my reservation to give the rooms to your family," I interrupted. "That's the version we're going with." I took a step toward her, then another. Kendra instinctively recoiled. "Tell me, Kendra, what part exactly is the misunderstanding? The part where you called demanding my reservation be canceled without even consulting me? Or the part where you assumed you had the right to dispose of something that doesn't belong to you?" "My family is coming to visit," she said, lifting her chin, regaining ground. "They are 5 important people who need lodging this weekend. I didn't know you had plans here. I thought Ryan had booked this place for us, and that you had simply invited yourself along. The audacity of that statement left me breathless for a moment. I had invited myself to my own hotel, to the reservation I had made myself. This woman's reality bending was Olympic level. "Kendra, that's enough," Ryan muttered. But his voice had no strength. It was the murmur of someone who had given up fighting a long time ago. She ignored him completely. "Look, Beatrice, I know things between us have been tense, but this is a perfect opportunity to start fresh. My family is eager to see the place where Ryan and I are spending the weekend. They are very important people. My mother, my uncles, people with connections. This could be excellent publicity for your little business." Little business. Those two words held all the venom she had been saving for years. This hotel had cost $250,000 between the land purchase, construction, and furnishings. I had hired an award-winning architect, renowned interior designers, imported furniture and decor. The online reviews gave us 5 stars. We had been mentioned in travel magazines. Little business. As if 3 years of my life, every cent of my savings, every sleepless night, could be reduced to those 2 condescending words. "This little business is worth more than the house you and Ryan live in," I said calmly. "This little business generates more money in 1 month than Ryan earns in 3. So no, Kendra, I don't need publicity from your mother or your important uncles. What I needed was a weekend with my son, something that is apparently too much to ask." Ryan finally moved. He walked toward me with those steps I remembered from when he was a boy, when he had done something wrong and was coming to confess. "Mom, listen, Kendra didn't mean it that way. Her family really is coming this weekend. They've been planning it for months. We can reschedule, right? We can come another weekend, whichever one you want." "They've been planning it for months?" I repeated, feeling something inside me begin to fracture. "Ryan, I sent you the invitation 6 weeks ago. You confirmed 4 weeks ago. At what point during those 4 weeks did it occur to you to mention that the plans had changed, or did you never intend to come at all? Was it just easier to confirm and then cancel at the last minute than to tell me the truth?" "It's not like that," he said, but the way he avoided my gaze said otherwise. "It's just that. Kendra told me about her family a few days ago, and I thought we could combine both things. Everyone together, a big family reunion. A family reunion. With Kendra's family. At my hotel. During the weekend I had planned to reconnect with my son. The level of delusion was almost impressive. "And when were you planning to tell me that your wife had invited 5 more people to my reservation?" I asked. "When they showed up with their suitcases? Or were you going to let me find out when Kendra called to cancel on me, as she just did?" Kendra let out a dramatic sigh. "For God's sake, Beatrice, you're blowing this all out of proportion. I was just trying to modify a reservation. Is all this theater really necessary?" Theater. Another word carefully chosen to minimize what she had done. I turned to her completely, forgetting Ryan for a moment. "No, Kendra. You didn't try to make a modification. You called demanding they cancel my reservation without my knowledge or consent. That's not a modification. That's attempted theft. And if Ethan hadn't been smart enough to hesitate, if I hadn't arrived at that exact moment, what would have happened? Would you have shown up with your family and simply kicked me out? Would you have left me on the street while you enjoyed the rooms I paid for?" "Nobody was going to leave you on the street," Kendra said, but her voice had lost its force. "I just thought that, since it's your hotel, you could easily get another room, or stay at your house, or wherever it is you live now. Wherever it is you live now, as if for the last 3 years I had been wandering aimlessly, as if this hotel wasn't also my home. I live here," I wanted to scream at her, "in the room on the 4th floor that no one can book because it's mine." But I didn't give her that information. She didn't deserve to know anything else about my life. "This weekend is important to me," I said, and I hated how my voice cracked slightly on the last word. "It's not just a reservation. It's the anniversary of this place. It's my way of celebrating that I survived, that I built something beautiful after losing everything. And I wanted to share it with my son, only with him, without interruptions, without an audience, without having to pretend we're a happy family in front of strangers." I looked at Ryan directly. "But it seems that's too much to ask. Ryan opened his mouth to answer, but Kendra interrupted him by placing a hand on his arm. That gesture, that damn gesture, I had seen 1,000 times. The way she touched him when she wanted to silence him, control him, remind him who was really in charge. And the worst part was that it worked. My son closed his mouth like an obedient child. Beatrice, I think you're being incredibly selfish, Kendra said, and the word hit me like a slap. My family has been planning this trip. They've paid for plane tickets. They've taken time off work. Are you really going to ruin all of that over your whim to have a weekend alone with Ryan? He lives here, in this city. You can see him whenever you want. I laughed. It was a dry, hollow laugh that echoed strangely in the empty lobby. Whenever I want. Kendra, the last time I saw my son was 11 months ago. 11, on his birthday. For 20 minutes in a restaurant where you didn't stop checking your phone and he didn't stop apologizing for having to leave early because you had commitments. Before that, 8 months. Christmas. 30 minutes at your house, where I was sat in the living room as if I were an annoying salesperson. So don't tell me I can see him whenever I want, because it's a lie, and we both know it. Kendra's face hardened. Something in my words had struck a nerve. Good. Let it hurt. If you don't see Ryan more often, it's because you decided to walk away. You sold your house. You moved far away to start this project. You were the one who chose the hotel over the family. Every accusation was a poisoned arrow designed to make me feel guilty. And for a second, it almost worked. Almost. Until I remembered all the times I had tried to reach out. All the rejected invitations. All the unreturned calls. All the "we're just so busy, Mom," that Ryan repeated like a learned mantra. I didn't choose this hotel over my family, I said, feeling the rage I had been suppressing for years begin to boil. I built this hotel because I didn't have a family anymore. Because my son decided that keeping his wife happy was more important than keeping a relationship with his mother. Because every time I tried to visit, you found a reason for the visit to be short, awkward, or canceled outright. Because I got tired of begging for scraps of attention from my own son. That's not fair, Ryan exclaimed, finally finding his voice. I never asked you to stay away. I never said I didn't want to see you. I spun toward him with such force that he took a step back. No, Ryan, you never said it. That's exactly the problem. You never said anything. When Kendra commented that my clothes were outdated, you said nothing. When she made it clear I wasn't welcome at her dinners with friends, you said nothing. When her family treated me like I was the hired help at gatherings, you said nothing. Your silence said everything. I watched guilt flash across his face. Good. Let him feel it. Let him carry the weight of all those moments where he chose comfort over courage. Mom, I didn't know you felt that way, he said, but even those words sounded rehearsed, as if he'd said them 1,000 times in similar conversations. If you had just told me. I moved closer to him. We were inches apart. I could see the small wrinkles around his eyes, the premature gray hairs starting to appear at his temples. My little boy, my son, the man he had become and whom I no longer fully recognized. I did tell you, Ryan, I whispered, not with words, because you never gave me the chance to have a real conversation with you. But I told you in every way possible. Every time I called and you cut the conversation short in 5 minutes. Every time I asked about your life and you answered in monosyllables. Every time I invited you to something and you said yes, but then canceled. All of that was me telling you I was losing you. And you chose not to listen. Kendra physically stepped between us. Enough. This is ridiculous. Ryan, we're leaving. Clearly your mother is more interested in making you feel guilty than in resolving this like adults. She tried to take my son's hand, but something happened. Something I had never seen before. Ryan pulled away. It was a small, almost imperceptible movement, but we both noticed it. Kendra's eyes widened with surprise and something else. Fear. Because maybe, for the first time, my son wasn't automatically following her script. Give me a minute, Kendra, Ryan said, his voice tired. Just a minute alone with my mother. She looked at him as if he had slapped her. Excuse me? Her tone was a warning. The voice she used when he was about to cross an invisible line. Kendra, please, just a minute. I waited for her to refuse. I waited for my son to cave as he always did. But this time, Ryan held her gaze. And after what felt like an eternity, Kendra turned on her heel and walked toward the entrance, her heels striking the marble with contained fury. She stopped at the door without turning around. 5 minutes, she said. I'll be in the car. The door closed behind her with a thud that echoed through the building. We were left alone, mother and son, with 3 years of silence between us. Ryan ran his hands over his face, a gesture I recognized from his father. Something he did when he was overwhelmed. I don't know what to say, Mom, he finally admitted. Everything you said is true. And I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Apologies were easy. Apologies didn't cost anything. What I needed were answers. Why, Ryan? Why did you let it happen? Your father died 8 years ago. I was all you had left. And you abandoned me for a woman who clearly can't stand me. I didn't abandon you, he protested weakly. Kendra is my wife. I have to choose her. That's how marriage works. I sat down in one of the lobby armchairs because my legs couldn't hold me anymore. Choose her over me. Your father never made me choose between him and your grandmother. Healthy marriages don't demand you cut ties with your family of origin. But you allowed it. Every time she criticized something about me, you stayed quiet. Every time she canceled a visit, you just accepted it. Do you know what that told me? That I wasn't worth fighting for. Ryan sank into the armchair across from mine. There was so much pain in his face, it almost made me take it all back. Almost. Kendra can be difficult, he said finally. When things aren't her way, she becomes impossible. She makes scenes. She cries. She threatens to leave. She gives me the silent treatment for days. It's just easier to please her than to confront her. Every word was a confession. And also an excuse. So you sacrificed me to keep the peace in your marriage, I said slowly. I became the collateral damage of your decision to avoid conflict. I don't see it like that, he replied. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. I just tried to keep a balance. To make you both happy. I leaned forward. Ryan, look at me. He finally did. His eyes were wet. You can't make two people happy when one of them demands the other doesn't exist. That's not a search for balance. It's a surrender. And you chose to surrender to her instead of defending what you and I had. The silence stretched between us. I could hear the wall clock ticking. I could see through the windows the car where Kendra was waiting, probably counting every second of these 5 minutes. When was the last time you were truly happy with her? I asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. What? Your marriage to Kendra. When was the last time you felt genuinely happy, not comfortable, not resigned? Happy. Ryan was silent for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, I don't remember, Mom, and that terrifies me. Those words hung in the air like a dead weight. My son had just admitted he couldn't remember the last time he'd been happy with his wife. And the way he said it, in that small, defeated voice, broke my heart in ways no insult from Kendra ever could. Ryan, I began, but he held up a hand to stop me. No, Mom. Don't look at me like that. Not with pity. I get enough of that every time I look in the mirror. He stood up and walked to the windows overlooking the garden. The ocean looked calm from here, the waves small and steady. What an irony. The sea, calm, while our lives were falling apart. The first few months were good, he said, talking more to himself than to me. Kendra was charming, fun, passionate. She made me feel important, like I was the only person in the world who mattered. But after the wedding, something changed. Or maybe nothing changed. Maybe I just started to see what was always there. He turned to me. It started with small things. She'd criticize my clothes. She'd say my friends were boring. She'd suggest I shouldn't have lunch with my coworkers so often because I was wasting time instead of advancing my career. Each suggestion sounded reasonable on its own. But together, they turned me into someone I don't even recognize. I wanted to run to him, to hug him like when he was a child and had nightmares. But I stayed seated. I needed to hear this. I needed him to say out loud what he had been burying for years. And Mom, I was the biggest idiot of all. Because when it started with you, when she started making comments about your way of speaking, your house, your job. I didn't defend you. I thought I was being neutral. I thought if I didn't take sides, eventually you two would find a way to get along." His laugh was bitter, as if neutrality in the face of abuse is a virtue instead of cowardice. "Why do you stay?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "If you're so unhappy, if you know she's changing you, why are you still there?" Ryan rubbed his eyes with a closed fist. "Because I'm 32 years old and failing at my first marriage would be devastating. Because our lives are completely intertwined. Joint bank account. House in both our names. All our friends are couples she chose. Because every time I think about leaving, she somehow senses it and becomes the woman I fell in love with for just long enough to make me doubt. Because I'm tired, Mom. Just so tired." The front door flew open violently. Kendra stormed in like a hurricane dressed in emerald. "Time's up," she announced. "Ryan, we're going. Now." But my son didn't move. For the first time in probably years, he stayed exactly where he was. "We're still talking, Kendra." The temperature in the lobby seemed to drop 10 degrees. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" Her tone was dangerously low. I recognized that voice. It was the voice that preceded the scenes Ryan had mentioned. The tears. The threats. The silent punishment. "I said we're still talking," Ryan repeated. And though his voice trembled, he didn't back down. "My mother and I have a lot to talk about. Things that should have been said years ago." Kendra looked at me as if I were poison. Of course. It's already started. The classic maternal manipulation. Make you feel guilty. Paint me as the villain. Convince you your marriage is a prison. I wonder how long it took for her to cry. The coldness with which she dissected the situation was chilling, as if it were all a predictable game where she already knew all the moves. "Nobody cried," I said, standing up. "We just had an honest conversation. Something that apparently doesn't happen much in your marriage." Kendra laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. "Honest. What an interesting word coming from you, Beatrice. Did you tell Ryan the honest part where you sold his childhood home without even consulting him? Where you made unilateral decisions about your life and then blamed him for not being present?" She hit a nerve. I knew it. And she knew it too, because she smiled with satisfaction. "That house was mine," I replied. "My husband left it to me, not to Ryan. I had every right to sell it." Kendra took a step toward me. "Technically, yes. Legally, yes. But emotionally, Beatrice, that house held every memory of his childhood. The room he grew up in. The backyard where his father taught him to ride a bike. And you sold it to finance your vanity project. This hotel. Your grand gesture. Your way of proving to the world you weren't just another widow. Every word was a calculated stab. But there was truth in them. A twisted, poisoned truth, but truth nonetheless. "I sold that house because every room reminded me of what I had lost," I said, feeling my voice break. "My husband died in that house. In our bedroom. I found him there one morning. Do you have any idea what it's like to wake up every day in the place where the person you loved most took his last breath? That house stopped being a home and became a mausoleum. I needed to get out of there, or I was going to drown in memories." Ryan's face crumpled. "Mom, I didn't know. You never told me that." Of course I hadn't told him. Because he was so consumed by his new life with Kendra that he never asked why I really needed to sell. He never asked how I was processing my grief. He just assumed it was a cold financial decision. "There are a lot of things you don't know, Ryan," I said softly, "because you stopped asking a long time ago." Kendra was unmoved by the emotional moment. Beautiful story, very touching. But it doesn't change the fact that we are here to solve a practical problem. My family arrives in 2 days. I need 5 rooms. This hotel has 12. Mathematically, it should be simple. The audacity was stunning. After everything that had just happened, she still believed she was going to get what she wanted. "The answer is no," I said firmly. "This hotel is fully booked this weekend. I do not have 5 rooms available for your family." "You're lying," Kendra said immediately. "I just checked your website in the car. You have at least 7 rooms available for this weekend." I crossed my arms. I had. 10 minutes ago, I asked Ethan to mark those rooms as unavailable. We are now officially full. I saw the exact moment Kendra understood she had lost. Her face went from disbelief to fury in a second. "You can't do that. That's an abuse of power. It's petty revenge. It's my hotel," I replied simply. "I can do whatever I want with my rooms. And I decided that this weekend, as originally planned, will be just for me and my son. If he still wants to stay, of course." All eyes turned to Ryan. The poor man was pale, caught between two opposing forces. I could see the internal war in his expression. The part of him that wanted to stay, that wanted to reclaim what we had lost, and the part that had been conditioned for years to never ever contradict his wife. "Ryan," Kendra said, and her voice had changed completely. It was no longer authoritarian. It was soft, vulnerable, with a hint of tears. "My family already bought their plane tickets. They already canceled their other plans. If I tell them now we have nowhere to stay, it's going to be humiliating. My mother is going to think I can't even organize a simple family weekend. Please, we can find another hotel nearby for your mother. One just as nice. We'll pay. Wouldn't that be better?" Everyone happy. It was brilliant, I had to admit. The way she pivoted from aggression to pleading. The way she made it about her family, her humiliation, her needs. Never about what Ryan needed or wanted. "I'm not going to another hotel," I said before my son could answer. "This is my hotel. This was my reservation. And I am not going to be displaced from my own space to accommodate your family, who, by the way, has never shown the slightest interest in meeting me in 5 years of marriage. Because you never made the effort to get to know them," Kendra shot back. "Always with your martyr attitude. Always playing the victim." Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the accumulation of years of small insults. Maybe it was seeing my son so broken. Maybe it was simply that I had nothing left to lose. "You know what, Kendra? You're right. I didn't make the effort to get to know your family. Want to know why? Because the first and only time I met them, your mother asked me if I was Ryan's housekeeper." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the sound of the ocean seemed to stop. Ryan was staring at me, wide-eyed. "At your engagement party, Kendra. Remember? That fancy dinner at that overpriced restaurant your family chose. I showed up in the nicest dress I owned, a coral-colored dress I had bought especially for the occasion. Your mother saw me and, without even introducing herself, said, 'Excuse me, can you get me more water?' When I explained that I was the groom's mother, you know what she did? She laughed. She laughed and said, 'Oh my goodness, how embarrassing. It's just that your clothes are so simple.'" Kendra had gone pale. "It didn't happen like that," she muttered. But her voice lacked conviction. "It happened exactly like that," I continued, feeling years of pent-up humiliation rise to the surface. "And your Uncle Mark, the one you said has so many important connections, spent the whole night asking me if I had finished high school. When I told him I had a college degree in business from a state university, he chuckled and said, 'Well, state schools will give a degree to anyone these days. Your cousin Jessica asked me if my dress was from a thrift store. And you, Kendra, you were there all night, hearing every comment, seeing every look of disdain, and you didn't say a single word in my defense.' Ryan didn't say anything either," she replied defensively. "But it was a weak argument, and she knew it. You're right, Ryan didn't say anything either. And that night, in the car on the way home, I asked him why he let them treat me like that. You know what he told me? That your family was just like that, very direct, and that I shouldn't take it personally. That they were used to a certain social standard, and I had to understand they came from a different world." I turned to my son. "That was the night I started to lose hope that you would ever stand up for me." Ryan had tears in his eyes. "Mom, I was an idiot. I know. But I was so desperate to fit into their world, to be good enough for Kendra, that I let them treat the only person who had always been there for me like dirt." Kendra made a sound of frustration. "Please, this is so overly dramatic. My family has high standards. Yes. Is it a crime to want the best for my husband? To want him to associate with successful, ambitious people who can open doors for him? What your family has aren't high standards," I said, my voice sharp. "What they have is classism, elitism, and a cruelty disguised as honesty. And you, Kendra, you learned very well from them. Every comment about my clothes, my way of speaking, my job before this hotel. It was all your way of reminding me that I wasn't good enough to belong in your circle. I stepped toward her. But here's the thing. I never wanted to belong to your circle. I just wanted a relationship with my son, that was all. And you two made that impossible. Kendra held my gaze. For the first time, I saw something behind the perfect facade. Something like fear. I don't know what you're talking about. I never stopped you from seeing Ryan. I laughed humorlessly. No, you just made every visit uncomfortable. You just scheduled important events on the days I had planned to see him. You just sulked for days every time he mentioned visiting me. You just made him feel guilty for wanting to spend time with me. That's not technically stopping him, Kendra. That's manipulation. And you did it so well Ryan didn't even notice for years. That's what she does, Mom, Ryan said suddenly. His voice was different now. Firmer. With everything. With everyone. My best friend from college, Elias, stopped calling me because every time he did, Kendra would find a reason to fight with me. She said Elias was a bad influence, that he made me waste time, that a married man shouldn't be hanging out with single guys. The same thing happened with my friends from the gym, with my poker night, with practically everyone in my life who wasn't approved by her first. Kendra took a step back as if she'd been struck. That's not fair, Ryan. I was just trying to protect you from people who weren't good for you. Elias was a partier who made you come home late. That poker night was betting money we didn't have. I was just looking out for our future. The way she said it sounded so reasonable, so logical. That was how the manipulation worked. I realized it. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't rude. It was careful, gradual, always wrapped in concern and love. And my job? Ryan asked. And there was something new in his voice. Rage. When I was offered that promotion 2 years ago, the one that required traveling twice a month, were you looking out for our future then? When you cried for 3 days saying I was choosing my career over our marriage? When you made me feel so guilty that I turned the promotion down? This was new to me. I knew nothing about a rejected promotion. From the look on Kendra's face, this was dangerous territory. That promotion meant you would be out of the house half the month, Kendra said, her voice rising an octave. It meant I would be alone, handling everything, while you traveled. What kind of marriage is that? Ryan ran his hands through his hair. A marriage where both people support each other's careers. A marriage where you don't have to sacrifice every chance for growth because your partner can't stand to be alone for a few days. He looked at me. That promotion would have meant $30,000 more a year, Mom. $30,000. Money we desperately needed because Kendra had spent our savings renovating the house. The house needed updating. Kendra shouted, the mask of control finally falling away completely. I couldn't keep living in that dated place with that horrible furniture you bought before you met me. What were our guests supposed to think? There it was. The naked truth. The guests. The appearances. What other people would think. Everything in Kendra's life revolved around how it looked from the outside, no matter how it felt on the inside. You spent $45,000 on renovations, Ryan said in a flat voice. $45,000 that I had saved for 6 years for a down payment on a bigger house. You spent it without consulting me. And when I confronted you, you cried and said you just wanted to make our home beautiful for me. That you didn't know that money was important. That I never tell you anything, and how were you supposed to know? He laughed bitterly. And I believed you, or I forced myself to believe you. Because the alternative was admitting that you had lied to me, manipulated me, and stolen from me. Every revelation was like peeling layers off a rotten onion. And the more that was removed, the worse it smelled. Kendra was visibly trembling now. I can't believe you're saying all this in front of her, she spat, pointing at me. In front of someone who clearly wants to destroy our marriage. This is exactly what she wanted. To turn you against me. I walked toward her slowly. Kendra, listen to me carefully. I don't need to destroy your marriage. You already did that. I'm just a witness to the rubble. You don't know anything about my marriage, she said, but her voice had lost its strength. I know my son hasn't been happy in years. I know you've isolated him from everyone who loves him. I know you've turned every decision into a battle where he has to choose between what he wants and keeping you happy. I know you've spent money you didn't have on appearances you didn't need. And I know that right now you are more worried about saving face in front of your family than about the emotional well-being of your husband. Every point was a blow, and I could see it was landing. You don't understand, Kendra said, and for the first time I heard something different in her voice. It wasn't arrogance. It was desperation. My family. They expect certain things of me. It's always been this way. I have to be perfect. My house has to be perfect. My husband has to be perfect. If I fail, if I show any cracks, they... She stopped, as if she had revealed too much, but it was too late. The door was open. They what, Kendra? I asked softly. Do they criticize you? Do they make you feel like you're not enough? Do they treat you the same way they treated your mother-in-law? Her eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time, not the strategic ones she used to manipulate situations. You don't get it. My mother. She's never satisfied. Nothing I do is ever good enough. My sister Evelyn is the perfect one. The one who married the doctor. The one with the huge house. The one who throws parties where important people go. I'm just the disappointment. The one who married a mid-level manager instead of an executive. The one who can't even organize a family weekend without screwing it all up. And there it was. The vulnerability that had been hidden under layers of cruelty. Kendra wasn't just the villain of this story. She was a victim, too. A victim who had chosen to perpetuate the cycle instead of breaking it. So you decided to do to Ryan what your family does to you, I said slowly. To project all that pressure, that need for perfection, that constant dissatisfaction. To turn him into your project to prove to your mother that you can have the perfect life. Kendra wiped her tears away angrily, as if she were mad at herself for showing weakness. It's not that simple. Of course it is, Ryan interjected. It all makes sense now. The excessive renovations, the insistence that I change the way I dressed, the dinners with important people where you paraded me around like a trophy. It wasn't about me. It was about what I represented to your family. It was about proving to your mother that you could have an enviable life, too. He sat down heavily in the armchair. God, we were just two broken people trying to fill voids the other could never fill. The lobby was shrouded in a heavy silence. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, staining everything in shades of orange and pink, beautiful and sad at the same time. My mother arrives tomorrow, Kendra said finally, her voice barely a whisper. Melissa, her and the rest of the family. I told them we had a beautiful hotel reserved, that we were going to have the perfect weekend. If they arrive and I have nothing. If I have to admit, I failed at even this. Her voice broke. She didn't need to finish the sentence. I looked at this woman who had made my life miserable for 5 years. This woman who had driven my son away from me. And all I could feel was a profound sadness, because I recognized something in her. I recognized the weight of impossible expectations. I recognized the desperate need to prove one's worth. I had felt something similar after my husband died. The need to prove I was still relevant, useful, valuable. The difference was that I had built something new instead of destroying what I had. Have you ever told your mother how you feel? I asked. Kendra looked at me, surprised by the question. Tell her what? That her impossible standards are killing me? That no matter what I do, I'll never be Evelyn? She'd just say I'm being dramatic. That I should be grateful to have a family that cares about me. The way she said it, with that bitter resignation, reminded me of how Ryan had spoken of his own situation. The cycles repeated. The wounds were passed down. When your mother arrives tomorrow, I said slowly, measuring each word. What do you think is going to happen? Kendra laughed humorlessly. She's going to critique everything. The hotel, the rooms, the food, the service. She's going to compare it to the resort Evelyn stayed at last month. She'll find something to criticize. She always does. And then, for the next 6 months, at every family gathering, she'll casually mention how her weekend was disappointing, how she expected more. The description was so specific, so painful, that even Ryan winced. And you're going to spend the entire weekend trying to manage her mood, I added. Apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Trying to make every moment perfect so that maybe, just maybe, she'll give you a crumb of approval. Am I wrong? Kendra shook her head, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks. It's exhausting. It always has been. But she's my mother. It's my family. I can't just cut ties like... She stopped, but we both knew how that sentence ended. Like you did with Ryan, except I didn't cut ties. I was cut off. There's a difference between setting healthy boundaries and cutting ties, I said. I never wanted to lose my son. But it got to a point where staying close meant losing my dignity, my mental health, my sense of self-worth. So I stepped away to survive, to build something that was mine, where no one could make me feel small. I looked around the lobby. This hotel is my sanctuary, the place where I reclaimed my power. And yes, part of that meant putting physical distance between me and my pain. Ryan stood up and walked over to Kendra. He stood in front of her, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. Kendra, we need to talk. A real conversation. No manipulations. No strategic tears. No threats. About what we really want. About whether this, he gestured between them, still works, or if we're just clinging to the idea of what we think a marriage should be. She looked at him with terrified eyes. Are you saying you want a divorce? I'm saying I want honesty, he replied, from both of us. Because this version where I'm walking on eggshells and you're managing everything through guilt and control, this isn't a marriage. It's a prison for both of us. The words floated between them, heavy and final. Kendra opened her mouth several times, but nothing came out. Finally, in a very quiet voice, she said, I don't know how to be different. This is who I am. It's how I was raised. Ryan nodded slowly. I know. And that's exactly the question. Can you change? Do you want to change? Because I can't keep living like this. The sun had set completely now. Ethan had discreetly turned on the lobby lights, creating a warm atmosphere that contrasted with the cold tension in the air. I need to think, Kendra said at last. This is all too much, too fast. She turned to me. Beatrice, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, not after everything. But my family really is arriving tomorrow, and I really don't have anywhere to put them. Is there any way? She left the question unfinished, hanging in the air like a plea. I looked at this woman who had been my antagonist for 5 years. Broken, vulnerable, exposed. Part of me wanted to say no, to tell her to figure it out herself, to let her feel the consequences of her actions. But another part, the part that had suffered under the weight of impossible expectations, the part that knew what it felt like to be not enough, that part felt compassion. There's a hotel about 20 minutes from here, I said finally, the Ocean View Lodge. It's owned by a friend of mine, Robert. I can call him and ask him to hold 5 rooms for you. It won't be at the price you were hoping for, but it will be acceptable. Kendra stared at me, incredulous. Why would you do that for me? I'm not doing it for you, I answered honestly. I'm doing it because breaking cycles of pain is important. And because maybe, just maybe, if your weekend isn't a complete disaster, you'll have the mental space to do the real work you need to do, on yourself and on your marriage. Kendra stood frozen, as if she couldn't process that I was offering her a way out after everything that had happened. I don't know what to say. Her voice was shaking. A thank you would be fine, I said, without emotion. Thank you, she whispered, and for the first time it sounded genuine. No layers of sarcasm or condescension, just pure, confused gratitude. I took out my phone and dialed Robert's number. He answered on the 3rd ring with his usual cheerful voice. Beatrice, what a surprise. How are you? I explained the situation in general terms, without going into the sordid details. Robert, being the professional he was, didn't ask awkward questions. Of course, I've got the availability. 5 rooms for tomorrow, for 3 nights. I'll give them a special rate since they're a referral from you. When I hung up, I passed the information to Kendra. Rooms confirmed. You can check in tomorrow after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The rate is $120 per night, per room. I watched her do the math in her head. 5 rooms for 3 nights. $1,800 in total. Not cheap, but not impossible. Okay, she said finally. We'll take it. Thank you, Beatrice. Really? Ryan was looking at her with an expression I couldn't fully decipher. relief mixed with sadness. So, your family will stay at the Ocean View Lodge, and we? He left the question in the air. You two will decide what to do, I said firmly. Ryan, my original offer still stands. The main suite is reserved for you if you decide to stay. We can have that weekend we planned. Just the two of us. No interruptions. Or, I continued, you can go with Kendra and her family. It's your choice. But it has to be your choice, not someone else's. I looked at Kendra directly. And that means you cannot pressure him, manipulate him, or make him feel guilty, no matter what he decides. Understood? Kendra swallowed hard and nodded. Understood. The moment stretched awkwardly. I could see the internal struggle on Ryan's face. His entire adult life had consisted of choosing the path of least resistance, of pleasing Kendra to avoid conflict. And now he was being asked to make a real decision with real consequences. I need time, he said finally, to think, to process all of this. He turned to Kendra. Go to the car. I'll wait here a few more minutes with my mother, and then we'll go home. But tonight, we're sleeping in separate rooms. We need space. Kendra's expression was one of pure panic. Separate rooms was the first step toward the end, and they both knew it. Ryan, that's not necessary, she began, but he held up a hand. Yes, it is. Please, Kendra, go to the car. This time, there were no additional pleas, no tears. Kendra nodded, grabbed her purse, and walked to the exit. Before she walked through the door, she turned back one last time. Beatrice, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for a lot of things. I don't know if it matters now, but it's true. And then she was gone, leaving Ryan and me alone. My son collapsed into the armchair as if all the strings holding him upright had been simultaneously cut. I feel like my life just exploded, he said, staring at the ceiling. And the terrifying part is, I feel relieved. What kind of person feels relieved when their marriage is falling apart? I sat down beside him and took his hand. It was larger than mine now, calloused from office work and years. But I could still see the boy he had been. An honest person, I replied. A person who has been suffering in silence for too long. How did I get here, Mom? His voice broke. How did I let everything get this bad? Dad never would have let this happen. He knew how to set boundaries. He knew when to fight and when to give in. I just wanted to keep the peace. And in the process, I lost everything else. I squeezed his hand. Your father made mistakes too, Ryan. He wasn't perfect, but he learned. And you can learn too. It's not too late to get yourself back. Ryan looked at me with watery eyes. What if I don't know who I am anymore? What if Kendra is right and without her, I'm just nothing? Listen to me very carefully, I said, turning to face him. You are my son. You are intelligent, kind, capable. You have a job you enjoy, skills that others value, a heart that deserves to be cared for. Kendra didn't make you. She molded you, yes. She changed you, bent you, broke you in some places. But she didn't create you. You existed before her, and you will exist after her. And maybe, just maybe, the version of you that exists after will be stronger, more authentic, and happier. He wiped the tears with the back of his hand. Will there be anything left of my marriage after this weekend? The question was genuine, not rhetorical. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe you and Kendra can go to therapy, do the hard work, and rebuild on a more honest foundation. Or maybe you'll realize this marriage was built on unmet needs and toxic expectations, and the kindest thing you can do is let each other go. Either outcome is okay, Ryan. What's not okay is to continue on like this. We sat in silence for a long time. Ethan passed by discreetly, offering us coffee, which we gratefully accepted. The hot, bitter liquid was exactly what I needed. Can I ask you something, Mom? His words careful. When you built this hotel, when you made the decision to sell the house and start over, were you scared? I smiled sadly. I was terrified. Every single day, every decision, every loan I signed. It felt like jumping off a cliff, not knowing if there was water below. And what kept you going? He asked. The alternative, I said simply. The alternative was staying where I was. in a house full of ghosts, in a life that didn't exist anymore, waiting for you or someone else to rescue me. And I realized that no one was coming, that if I wanted a different life, I had to build it myself. So I did, brick by brick, mistake by mistake, until one day I looked around and saw I had created something beautiful. I looked at the lobby around us, the plants, the paintings, the carefully chosen furniture. This place saved me, Ryan. It gave me a purpose when I thought I had none left. Ryan nodded slowly. I think I need to find what's going to save me. He stood up and helped me to my feet. Thank you, Mom. For today. For not giving up on me, even when I had given up on us. He hugged me then. A long, tight hug, the kind we hadn't shared since he was a teenager. He smelled different now, like expensive cologne Kendra had probably picked out. But underneath it, I could still detect something familiar. My son. My baby. My hope. I love you, Mom, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry I've been absent. I'm sorry I didn't protect what we had. The tears I had been holding back finally began to fall. I love you too, sweetheart. Always. No matter what. We pulled apart slowly, both of us wiping away tears with shaky smiles. I should go, Ryan said, glancing toward the door where he knew Kendra was waiting. She's in the car, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. Do you? Go. But Ryan, promise me something. He looked at me expectantly. Promise me that no matter what you decide to do, it will be because you chose it. Not out of fear, not out of guilt, not because of what others expect of you, but because it's what you truly want in your heart. He swallowed hard. I promise, Mom. I watched him walk to the exit. Just before he stepped through the door, he stopped and turned around. The weekend. I think I'd like to stay. Here. With you. If the offer still stands. My heart leaped. It will always stand. He smiled. It was a small, tired, but genuine smile. I'll come by Friday afternoon. After Kendra's family is settled at the Ocean View Lodge. Does that work? I wanted to shout. It's perfect. But I just did. That sounds perfect. I'll have the suite ready for you. And then he was gone. I heard the car engine start. I saw the taillights disappear down the gravel path. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt real hope. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed in my room on the 4th floor, watching the ocean through the window. The waves were constant, endless, reminding me that life went on, no matter what. I thought about everything that had happened in the last few hours. The confrontation, the revelations, the tears, Kendra's vulnerability, which I never expected to see, and Ryan, my son, finally finding his voice. At 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. Beatrice, it's Kendra. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something. Ryan is asleep in the guest room. I'm in our bed, alone, thinking about everything we said today. You were right. About all of it. I've been terrible to you. I've manipulated Ryan. I've projected my own issues onto our marriage. I don't know if I can change, but I want to try. Not for my mother, not for appearances, but because I realize today that I'm about to lose the only man who has ever genuinely loved me. And that terrifies me more than my family's disapproval. I read the message 3 times. I didn't reply immediately. I took my time, choosing my words carefully. Finally, I wrote, Kendra, recognizing the problem is the first step, but apologies without real change are just manipulation by another name. If you truly want to save your marriage, get professional help. Individual therapy, couples therapy. Do the work. Not for Ryan, for you. Because you deserve to be more than the sum of your mother's expectations. I pressed send and turned off the phone. Friday arrived faster than I expected. I spent the days obsessively preparing the main suite. Fresh flowers. The softest linen sheets. A bottle of that wine Ryan used to like when he was younger. Little details he might not even notice, but that were important to me. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, his car appeared in the parking lot. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. I watched him get out with a small suitcase. He looked different. Lighter, somehow. When he walked into the lobby, he smiled at me. Hi, Mom. "Hi, sweetheart." Ethan handed him the key to the suite with a knowing grin. "Presidential suite, Mr. Ryan. Enjoy your stay." Ryan laughed. "Thanks, Ethan." We rode the elevator up together in comfortable silence. When I opened the door to the suite, I saw his expression change. Surprise. Emotion. Appreciation. "Mom, this is amazing." The room was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows looking directly out at the ocean. The king-size bed was covered with that lavender-colored quilt I had found at an artisan market. A private balcony with 2 chairs and a small table. A bathroom with a deep soaking tub and a rainfall shower. I had placed framed photos on the nightstand. Photos of Ryan as a child, of his father, of the 3 of us together. Ryan walked over to the photos and touched them tenderly. "I haven't seen these in years." His voice was barely a whisper. "I saved them. All of them. I thought maybe someday you'd want to see them again." He turned to me, his eyes misty. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom. For keep trying, even when I had stopped responding." I hugged him. "You're my son. I would never give up." We stood like that for a long moment, silently healing years of distance. That night, we had dinner on the hotel terrace. Ethan had set up a special table for 2, away from the other guests. We ate, drank wine, and talked about everything and nothing. I told him about the challenges of running the hotel, the difficult personalities, the wonderful guests who had become friends. He told me about his job, his frustrations, his dreams he had buried. "Did you ever want to be an architect?" I asked, remembering his passion as a teenager. "I used to. Now, I don't know. I feel like I've been living on autopilot for so long. I don't even know what I'm passionate about anymore." "Then this weekend is for rediscovering that," I said. "No pressure. No expectations. Just you, deciding what you want from life." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "Kendra and we had a long talk on Wednesday after I got home. It was brutal, painful, but necessary. I told her everything, how I felt, how her family made me feel, how her manipulations had worn me down. She cried a lot. She apologized. She promised to change." He paused. "I don't know if I believe her, Mom. She's promised to change before, after every big fight. And it lasts for a week. Maybe 2. Then it's back to the same thing." "And what did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her this time was different, that we either get real, professional help or I was leaving. Not as a threat, as a fact, because I can't live like that anymore." He took a sip of wine. She agreed. She found a therapist. Our first couples session is on Tuesday, and she started individual therapy yesterday. I was surprised. I had expected resistance. "That's progress." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, but she also told me something that made me think. She said if we're going to therapy, I need to work on my stuff too. On my inability to set boundaries. On my need to please. On how my silence was just as destructive as her manipulation." "She's right," I admitted. "A marriage is a 2-person responsibility. She has her work to do. You have yours." Ryan looked at me directly. "Do you think we can save it? Our marriage?" The question hung in the air between us. "Honestly, I don't know. But I know that if you're going to try, it has to be for the right reasons. Not out of fear of being alone. Not for appearances, but because you genuinely believe there is something there worth saving. Real love. Mutual respect. A future you both want." He contemplated my words in silence. The ocean roared softly below. The stars were beginning to appear. Saturday dawned with a clear sky and the sound of seagulls. We had breakfast together on the suite's balcony. Fresh pastries and strong coffee. Ryan looked rested for the first time in years. "I slept for 8 straight hours," he told me with amazement. "I can't remember the last time that happened." I smiled. "This place has that effect. The sound of the sea. The peace. The absence of tension." We spent the morning walking on the beach, barefoot in the sand. We talked about his father, about how much we missed him, about how he would have handled this situation. "He would have told you to stand up for your mother," I said. "He was always very clear on that. Family first." "I know," Ryan replied, "and I'm ashamed it took me so long to realize I betrayed him, you, and myself." We sat in the sand, watching the waves. Your father wasn't perfect, you know, I said after a while. He had a temper. He was stubborn sometimes. Other times, he avoided conflicts he should have faced. But what he had, and what he never lost, was his moral compass. He knew the difference between keeping the peace and betraying his values. That's the difference. Ryan sifted sand through his fingers, letting it fall slowly. How did he learn that? I laughed softly. By making mistakes. Lots of them. And by having someone who loved him enough to call him out on them. In the afternoon, while Ryan was reading on the balcony, my phone rang. It was a number I recognized from the Ocean View Lodge. Robert. Beatrice, sorry to bother you, but I need to tell you something about your guests. My stomach tensed. What happened? Robert sighed. Kendra's family arrived this morning. The mother, Melissa, has been difficult. Nothing is good enough. The rooms are too small. The food isn't what she expected. The service is slow. She's made 2 of my staff members cry. And when Kendra tried to calm her down, the mother said something I overheard. Something about how her daughter can't even organize a simple weekend without ruining it. I closed my eyes. Poor Kendra, living the exact scenario she had feared. How is she? I asked. Devastated, Robert replied. I saw her in the garden an hour ago, just crying. I offered her some tea, and she told me she was grateful. At least someone was being kind to her. Beatrice, I don't know the whole story between you, but that woman is in a lot of pain. And her family is toxic. I thanked him for the update and hung up. I stared at the phone, debating internally. Finally, I made a decision. I called Kendra. She answered on the second ring. Her voice choked. Beatrice? I heard what happened, I said directly. Robert called me. Silence. Then a sob. My mother hates everything. She says I've embarrassed her, that her weekend is ruined because of my incompetence, that Evelyn never would have made such a huge mistake. Each word came out between tears. Kendra, listen to me. Your mother is wrong. You didn't ruin anything. The Ocean View Lodge is an excellent hotel. If it's not good enough for her, the problem isn't you, it's her, and her impossible expectations. More crying. You don't understand. My whole life, I've been trying to please her. My whole life, I've been the disappointment. I understand more than you think, I replied, because I also spent years trying to be enough for someone who would never be satisfied. Kendra, as long as you keep measuring your worth by your mother's approval, you will always lose, because she is never going to give it to you. Not completely, not in the way you need. There was a long pause. What do I do? Her voice was small, lost. You set boundaries. You tell her that her behavior is not acceptable, that you will not allow her to treat the service staff badly, that if she can't be respectful, she can find another hotel. And if that means she gets angry with you, that she talks badly about you at family gatherings, that she compares you to Evelyn, you accept it, because your peace of mind is worth more than her approval. I'm scared, she admitted. I know. But Kendra, you're already suffering. The question is, would you rather suffer setting boundaries and regaining your dignity, or suffer by staying in this endless cycle where you are never enough? The silence stretched. Finally, she said, You're right. Thank you, Beatrice. For everything. For the rooms. For this call. For not treating me the way I deserve after everything I did to you. We hung up shortly after. I didn't know if Kendra would actually do anything different, but at least I had planted the seed. That night, the last of our weekend, Ryan and I had dinner on the terrace again. I told him about the call with Kendra, about Melissa and her behavior. Ryan shook his head sadly. I understand so much now. Why Kendra is the way she is. Why she's terrified of failure. She grew up with that. I nodded. Pain is passed down, from generation to generation, until someone is brave enough to break the cycle. Ryan took my hand across the table. You broke the cycle, Mom. By building this place. By refusing to disappear. By setting boundaries even when it hurt. You taught me something important this weekend. What's that? I asked. That real love doesn't demand you lose yourself. That healthy relationships have room for 2 whole people, not 2 halves who desperately need each other. That sometimes walking away is the most loving act you can do, for yourself and for the other person. His words filled me with pride. My son had learned. He had grown. He had found his voice. "What are you going to do on Monday?" I asked. "When you go back home?" Ryan took a deep breath. "I'm going to that therapy session with Kendra. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to try to save my marriage, if it's salvageable. But this time, not at any cost. This time, with clear boundaries. And if it doesn't work?" The question floated between us. Then I'll know I tried. For real. Honestly. Without manipulation. Without fear. And I'll be able to leave without guilt. Because I'll have done everything I could. He leaned back in his chair. "But no matter what happens with Kendra, there's one thing that's non-negotiable. You and me. Our relationship. I am never leaving you out of my life again. I am never choosing comfort over our connection again. I promise you, Mom. This time is different." Tears ran freely down my face. "That's all I ever wanted, Ryan. To have you in my life. To be a part of yours." Sunday morning came too quickly. Ryan packed his suitcase while I made coffee. When we went down to the lobby, Ethan already had everything ready. "It was a pleasure having you, Mr. Ryan. I hope to see you again soon." Ryan smiled. "I'll be back. Soon. I promise." We hugged in the parking lot, the sun shining down on us. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up. For this hotel. For reminding me who I am." I held him tight. "Thank you for coming back to me." I watched his car drive away, but this time was different. There was no sadness, no despair. Just hope. Hope that we had found our way back to each other. 2 months later, I got a call from Ryan. "Mom, I have news." His voice was calm. "Kendra and I. We tried. We went to therapy. We did the work. But in the end, we both realized the damage was just too deep. We're getting a divorce. It's amicable. She's still in individual therapy. So am I. We're both healing." My heart squeezed. "Are you okay?" There was a pause. "Yeah, Mom. I'm okay. Sad, but okay. Because for the first time in years, I'm being honest with myself." I smiled through the tears. "That's all that matters." 6 months after that, Ryan moved into an apartment near the hotel. He started visiting every couple of weeks. Dinners. Walks. Real conversations. Kendra sent a letter months later. A real apology. Telling me she had temporarily cut contact with her mother. That she was figuring out who she was without other people's expectations. I wrote back, wishing her the best. Because in the end, we were all just broken people trying to heal. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is letting go. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of pain. Letting go of resentment. And embracing the truth, even when it hurts. Because only in truth do we find freedom. And only in freedom do we find peace.